In March 2019, a geophysicist at the California Institute of Technology locked 34 people inside a dark aluminum box and proved our brains read magnetic fields. The researcher, Joe Kirschvink, rotated a silent magnetic field around the outside of the box. The 34 people sitting inside the box felt nothing out of the ordinary. But the electrical waves inside their brains told a completely different story. Their brains screamed in recognition when the magnetic field shifted to point down and north. That exact angle matches the natural magnetic field of the Earth in the northern hemisphere. You have a physical, working magnetic compass sitting inside your head right now. This discovery raises a fairly embarrassing question about our own evolutionary history. A common pigeon uses its magnetic compass to fly across an entire continent without a map. Meanwhile, you get hopelessly lost trying to find the exit of a parking lot at a shopping mall. And how did our ancient ancestors actually use this hidden biological hardware before we completely forgot it existed? To understand our embarrassing navigation skills, we need to look at the human brain as a massive corporate office. Your conscious mind is the arrogant CEO sitting on the top floor, taking all the credit for your daily survival. But deep down in the dark basement sits the technical team, running the background software that actually keeps you alive. And back in the 1990s, scientists discovered that the technical team in the basement is equipped with some serious hardware. Researchers found millions of tiny magnetite crystals shoved inside the human ethmoid bone. That is the spongy bone sitting right between your eyes and just behind your nose. Translation: you have a collection of microscopic iron magnets built directly into your face. Which really explains why I feel such a powerful, relentless attraction to my refrigerator at 3 in the morning. These magnetite crystals react to the magnetic field of the Earth, tugging on nearby nerve endings whenever you turn your head. Later scientific studies also found proteins called cryptochrome 4 floating inside human eyes. Cryptochrome 4 is a light-sensitive protein that changes its chemical shape when it gets hit by a magnetic wave. Translation: your eyes are built to literally see magnetic north as a faint shade of blue or gray. The technical team in the basement has a visual map and an iron compass working in perfect harmony. But having advanced navigation hardware means nothing if the CEO on the top floor refuses to read the emails. Which brings us to the weird, brilliant way our ancestors forced their conscious minds to check the magnetic dial every single day. Ancient humans did not have satellite navigation, so they built a brilliant workaround directly into their daily language. Take the Gugu Yamathir people of northern Australia, whose culture goes back tens of thousands of years. Their traditional language does not contain any words for left or for right. Suppose a poisonous spider is crawling on the leg of a Gugu Yamathir hunter. You would have to tell him there is a spider on his southwest leg. Imagine trying to teach your grandmother how to use a smartphone when you have to tell her to swipe northeast on the screen. That sounds like an absolute logistical nightmare for holding a basic daily conversation. But because their language demands absolute cardinal directions, Gugu Yamathir children train their arrogant CEO from birth. They force their conscious minds to constantly check in with the technical team in the basement from the moment they learn to speak. You could blindfold a Gugu Yamathir speaker and spin them around inside a dark room. If you ask them to point north, they will point to true north without a single moment of hesitation. They are consciously reading the tug of the magnetite crystals in their ethmoid bone. And these Australian hunters were certainly not alone in practicing this navigational witchcraft. In the year 1000, Polynesian navigators sailed wooden canoes across thousands of miles of open Pacific Ocean. They made these massive journeys without a single map or a metal compass. These sailors claimed they could feel the direction of distant islands through their lower bodies as ocean swells hit their hulls. Meanwhile, I need 3 different smartphone apps just to locate my own car in a parking lot at a grocery store. These ancient voyagers were actively listening to the biological compass that modern humans ignore. If this built-in navigation system is so powerful, why did scientists spend 40 years claiming that human magnetoreception was complete nonsense? Now, if you took a biology class at a university, you are probably shouting at your screen right now. You want to point out that human magnetic navigation was tested and completely debunked back in the 1980s. And you would be completely right about one specific, highly embarrassing scientific disaster. In 1980, a British zoologist named Robin Baker blindfolded dozens of students from a university in Manchester. He dumped them into the middle of the English countryside and told them to point toward home. That sounds like a terrible hazing ritual at a fraternity, disguised as academic research. Baker claimed his students could point toward home using their internal compass, and he published his dramatic claims in scientific journals. But when scientists in the United States and Germany tried to repeat his experiment, the blindfolded students pointed in completely random directions. The entire theory crashed and burned in front of the global scientific community. For almost 40 years, researchers treated human magnetoreception like Bigfoot or astrology, viewing anyone who studied it as a complete crackpot. But Robin Baker failed because his experiment was fundamentally flawed from the very start. He asked his students to consciously guess which way was north while standing in a cold, windy field. He was asking the CEO on the top floor to explain a technical report that he had never been trained to read, which left scientists wondering if anyone could ever design an experiment smart enough to bypass the CEO and speak directly to the basement. Does your daily life feel like it is run by an arrogant CEO who ignores the technical team in the basement? If that sounds familiar, hit the like button on this page right now. It helps the algorithm on YouTube direct our stories to other lost souls. Now let us see how a scientist in California finally solved that 1980 disaster. This brings us back to Joe Kirschvink and his 2019 aluminum box at the California Institute of Technology. Kirschvink realized that the 1980 Manchester experiment failed because our conscious brains are terrible at listening to subtle biological signals. So he decided to bypass the arrogant CEO entirely and measure the technical team in the basement directly. He placed 34 participants inside the dark cage and attached electrodes to their scalps to measure alpha waves in their brains. You can think of alpha waves as the screensaver mode of your brain. When you are relaxing with your eyes closed, your alpha waves are high and loud because your brain is idling. But when your brain suddenly detects something important, the screensaver turns off and those alpha waves drop instantly. When Kirschvink shifted the magnetic field inside the box, the participants sitting in the chair felt nothing at all. But the alpha waves in their brains dropped by an astonishing 60%. That is a massive neurological reaction, equivalent to a sudden flash of light, happening inside a pitch-black room. The technical team in the basement was screaming that the magnetic field of the Earth had just moved. The magnetite crystals in the ethmoid bone were tugging on nerve endings, and proteins called cryptochrome 4 were reacting to the magnetic waves. The physical navigation hardware inside the human skull was working in perfect order. So why does the CEO on the top floor refuse to pick up the phone? Why did modern humans lose the ability to actually navigate with this amazing biological hardware? We finally have the answer to our central mystery, and it turns out we never actually lost our compass at all. We simply drowned it out with noise and outsourced the job to our eyes. Throughout human evolution, our species invested heavily in sharp color vision to hunt animals and find ripe fruit. Over millions of years, our visual cortex grew so powerful that it became a corporate bully inside the brain. The CEO realized that looking at a mountain range or a river was much easier than reading the subtle tug of magnetite crystals. So our conscious executive brain simply stopped checking the internal magnetic dial. We also flooded our modern environment with an endless amount of electrical interference. The power lines over your street, the wiring inside your walls, and the smartphone in your pocket generate constant electrical chatter. Your poor internal compass is trying to whisper the direction of north while standing in the middle of a heavy metal concert. Ancient humans were able to use their compass because they lived in a silent magnetic world. Their daily survival depended on checking that biological dial every single day. If you stop forcing your brain to track cardinal directions from childhood, the neural pathways connecting the basement to the top floor wither away. But that leaves us with one final unsettling thought about the human body. Your internal technical team is still sitting down there in the dark right now, faithfully pointing toward north. It is patiently waiting for a memo that the CEO is never going to read. Ancient humans had a compass in their head to act as a reliable backup navigation system. They needed it when clouds hid the stars and familiar landmarks were completely gone. And they used it by weaving absolute cardinal directions into their very language and their daily survival habits. If you want to help our channel's own executive committee survive the unpredictable algorithm on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and leave a like. And down in the comments, I want you to settle a historical scientific debate for me. Suppose Joe Kirschvink took his modern aluminum box and put Robin Baker's 1980 blindfolded Manchester students inside it. Do you think the alpha waves of those students would have dropped as expected? Or was Baker's entire student group just too hopelessly drunk on cheap English beer to register a magnetic field? Argue it out down below. But before you judge those lost students too harshly, ask yourself one final question. What other ancient biological senses are currently sitting dormant in your skull, quietly screaming survival information that you will never consciously hear?